Okay, now that you have your simple scene set up, we can begin to add materials to everything. Now Blender has two options for creating materials. You have the internal Blender rendering engine, and you also have the Cycles rendering engine. We're going to be using the Cycles renderer, which uses a node-based setup for creating materials. It's I find it a little easier to use than the Blender internal, and you get better results as well. So if I were to go down to the shading tab and hit rendered, you see we don't have much to look at here other than gray. That's kind of just the default empty material. You have the light source is behind the tree a little bit, as opposed to our view. If I were to rotate this around, you have a little, you can see where the light's actually shining on. We will change this as well as add the materials, but we're going to do that. Actually, let's do that now, so when we are testing the look of the materials, we can see what we are working with other than this dark blob. So right click to select the lamp that's in your scene. Over here in the properties window, this little sun looking icon, click that tab, and this is your light settings. Right now it's a point lamp, which shoots it out in all directions. I generally use a sun lamp because it's, you can control the direction. You can kind of see the shadows moving there, and it just gives a even just here you can see it's a brighter image. So I'm going to hit G to grab this. I'm just going to pull it out here. It's not going to matter because you can see it only affects the direction. That dashed line that's coming out of it, that's the direction of the light. And so you can see you can place it anywhere and it doesn't affect the lighting. Only if you hit R to rotate, only that affects the lights. Or the sun lamp, I should say, not just, I don't mean all of the lights. So if we, whoops, I'm going to go ahead and split this view. I'm going to drag down. I'm going to put my cursor over the top window and press 1. So this is the front view. You can see the directions, the direction that the light is shooting. I'm going to hit 3 to go in the side view. I'm going to hit R to rotate this up just a little bit. I don't want it necessarily dead on, but I'm going to do that. I'm going to go down to this top view window and I'm going to rotate until I get something that I like. I'll just position it there for now. We can see the tree a lot better than it was lit before. So let's go ahead and A to deselect everything. Now I'm going to just drag this window down and leave this bottom one in top view. This window here, we're going to switch to the node editor for the materials. So just at the bottom of this top window, just click on the editor type and we will go to node editor. And you can see we have a blank grid here, and this is where your node workspace will be. And you can pan and zoom just as you would, just as you would in the 3D view. Because sometimes you can have nodes every which way, and you might have to zoom way out, pick one, and then zoom back in. It can get to be a real mess. We're just going to keep it real simple. So to I'll just turn this up here. I'm going to use this window as my selection window. Let's choose. Actually, go into your left window and press Z to go into wireframe, and then maybe Z again to go into shaded. So I'm going to right click on the bottom. I'm going to right click on the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, or however many you have. So just select the bottom one and then hold shift and then right click on the rest of the cones. Now I'm going to make one object out of this, so I'm going to hit Control J. So we're applying the material to just this one object instead of doing it multiple times. Now the Christmas ornaments we should leave separate, at least for now, because they're all going to not necessarily all be a different color, but they're not all going to be the same color. Same with the lights. So basically we just need to join these cones together. So with those selected, you can go over here to the Material tab. Let me open this up a bit. And the Material tab is this little sphere. So you can hit New, and that just creates a new material. I'm going to just pan this over so we can see it. I'm going to go down here to the shading type and click Rendered. And now you can even see that it is a little bit different color. It just puts the default diffuse. This is your material output node. This is your diffuse. We could have transparent, glossy, glass, and have this all mixed together via these strands, and then they would plug into the material output in the end. You'll see how this all works in a minute. But first, we don't want white leaves, so you can just click on the color here. You can also do that over on this side. I like to just work in the node editor. Just click on the white box there, and pick your oh, got a little bit of lag there. Pick the color you like. Let's go for a not necessarily bluish green, but I will go for a lighter kind of green here, and then you can darken it with desaturate it here. Let's give it a little bit of brightness. Well, maybe not. I'm going to go down just about there. So there we have the material for the leaves, and we're just going to go ahead and leave this as a simple diffuse material, because this all can get very confusing very fast. So let's select one of these. Yep, I got one of the ornaments selected here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit to that one so we can see how the light's going to react on that. So we will hit New for material, and again it just puts another diffuse, and we can choose the color of the ornament here. Go with this reddish purple. Now most ornaments are going to have some sort of sheen or reflectivity to them, and we can add that. I'm going to move just left click and drag, and you can move the nodes around, or you can even hit G just like you would in the 3D window. So I'm going to hit Shift A, and that brings up your add menu, and in this case we are going to do a new shader, and this will be a glossy shader. So this is going to control the reflectivity of the ornament. So we can't just plug that in like that. So now you see a reflective surface, and it's taken a little longer to render. And we'll go over render settings and samples in the next video. But I'm leaving mine computer on the CPU. Normally you can set it to use your graphics card processor to get faster previews and renders, but for now I'm just going to not go over those settings until the next video. So that's why it's a little slow, is because I'm rendering this with my CPU. So you can see we have roughness channel on the glossy shader, and that just makes the sheen a little less apparent. You can turn it way down, and that's like full reflectivity, and that's not gonna, you're gonna have a little bit of roughness. I just usually between 1 and 2. Don't worry about these settings, I couldn't explain them if I tried. So in order to mix the color with the reflectivity here, we will need to add a mix node. So Shift A, and now I have to find the mix shader. There we go, it's under the shader menu. I haven't used this in a little bit, so you can see it just plugs in automatically when you drop it over the I just undid what I did. So once you pick this mix shader, Shift A, shader, mix shader, you can drag that right over any connection and it will insert itself. But we need to mix the diffuse now. I'm gonna just click and drag this down to the bottom channel, and then click and drag a new rope here to this top channel of the mix shader, and you can see right now it's mixed 50-50. You can crank it up. Now you have full glossy and full diffuse. So I'm gonna just go ahead and leave it in the middle, which seems to look pretty good. I'm getting a bit of a reflection on there. So this material we can actually copy over, or apply, I should say, apply this to other objects once it's created, so you don't have to create it for each object. So I'm going to zoom in down here and actually hit Z to go in the shaded mode. So I'm going to pick this top one, so right click, and you see you don't want to create a new shader. We can just click this, and this will give you a drop down with all of the materials in your scene. That's why it is helpful to name every material and every object. Once everything, your scene gets bigger and bigger, it gets really confusing. But for now, we'll just go ahead and leave this as such. So I'm going to pick this new material. So now it has the same properties. And if I were to change this, it changes both. Set that back in the center. To make this top ornament have a separate material, all you do is click this number 2. This tells you how many objects are using this material, which I'm just going to click on that and type ornament. So click on this number 2, that creates a separate material for this top. And we can change the color. Do a blue one, let's do a blue one. So now you have a new material that you didn't have to set up. All you had to do was break the link between the two objects sharing that one material, and now you have a separate new material which you can rename. So now you have a blue material and a reddish purple material. I'm going to create one more, so I'm just going to go ahead and select this ornament up top here. I'm going to do the drop down, pick the blue color. I'm going to click this number 2 to separate it. And then I'm going to rename this. I haven't picked a color yet, but I will do, let's just do yellow or gold. So we can go ahead and pick our new color. Bring this out a bit. There we go. Okay, so now you have three materials, and you can actually just select which ornament gets which color. So go ahead and right click on your ornaments and pick a color, and I'm just going to do this fast so there may be some overlap. Trying to select this one in the back there. So do a red one for that. You know, and experiment, create your own colors, and set the reflection on the ornaments as you wish. I'll just do red for that. Trying to alternate, but let's say with only 3 colors, you can only do so much variation. So this will be the last row. And we could have just randomly selected, let's see, I have this ornament selected. We could have selected that one, select this one, Control J to group those, and then pick the material. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Give this red, and see it does both of them since it's technically one object. But I will just do yellow for this one, and oh no, I'll do blue for that one. So with the lights, that's what we're going to do. We're going to just select a random sampling, group them together, and I think we'll do 2 color lights just for the sake of time. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Z twice to get back to this solid view, and hit A to deselect everything. So now I can zoom in just a little bit so we can see our lights. I will just shift right click on one of them, and then shift right click on the other. So I might just actually alternate. I'm going to Control Z twice. So just shift and right click the ones that you want to kind of have this be the same color. Since I'm only doing 2 colors, I'm going to Control Z. I'm just going to have 2 sets of lights. So once I get all of these selected while holding the Shift key down, I'm going to hit Control J. So now these, I'm going to hit G. You can see are all just one object. And so you don't get confused selecting the other ones, select the group that you just made and hit H. That will hide them. And then you can shift right click all of the rest of these. And this will be the second color. I think I'll do like a real whitish yellow, and then maybe a, oh no, red maybe. And once you have all those selected, Control J. Now we need to bring back the object that we hid, so whoops, sorry, I just hid the second group. So I'm going to Control Z to undo that, but then Alt H will bring back your hidden objects. So H to hide, Alt H to reverse that. So just right click to select one of these. I'm going to go back into the rendered view, and I'm going to select a new material this time, and we don't want the diffuse, so go ahead and just hit X to delete that. What we want to do is Shift A and shader, and then we want an emission shader. So just move that anywhere and plug that into the surface. So now you can see we have, and it's taking a little longer to render, but you can see the light bouncing off of the tree. And you can see it's looks a lot different than just a color. I kind of actually just like that white. I'm going to just do a hint of yellow. It's almost too yellow. Wow. So, yeah, just a little bit like that. And then we can select our other object. I'm going to apply that same emission material. I can kind of tell which one it is because of it's just kind of a white dot. But let's not select anything yet. Go back and select your other group of lights that you just put a material on. Go ahead and excuse me. Go ahead and name this lights. I'm just going to white, enter, and now I'm going to select the second group of lights. I'm going to pick the lights white material. I will separate it into its own material, and I'm not going to rename it yet because I want to see what colors I want. Don't have any light blue. Ooh, kind of like the orange. I'm going to bring it up here. You can do whatever color you like. So we'll let that render. And I think I will turn the sun lamp down a bit, but let me rename this first. And let's go Z down here and select the trunk of the tree. So in this case we can just hit new material and pick a brownish, the presents are kind of blocking it right now, but let's see. Yeah, so we have a little brownish material there. Basically I just picked kind of a reddish orange and turned down the saturation. Bring this back up, and I'm going to see what happens when since I created this lamp in the Blender render originally, since we're in Cycles render, I can just hit use nodes and it creates an emission shader for the lamp. I want to see what I do when I turn this down a bit. I'm going to hit just 0.5. Yeah, because I want to see more of the lights on the tree. That looks good. I'm going to A to deselect everything there. And now we can do the presents. Now I know the wrapping paper usually has patterns and whatnot. We can do that kind of quickly with some filters. So go ahead and select one of your packages, hit new material, and we're going to do the same as we did with the ornaments. We're going to Shift A, shader, and then glossy, and then again Shift A, shader, and mix shader, and just drop that into that top one. Drop this here and give it a little bit of a shine. So now we want to maybe add some noise to it. Let's Shift A and then pick texture, and we can do noise. There's all kinds of different textures that we can drop in here. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to change the diffuse color to red. Let me undo this, so Control Z, Control Z, Control Z a few times until I get rid of that texture because I plugged it into the wrong slot. Let's bring it over here and drop it into the color. So now you can see there's a bit of a pattern on here. And we can add color to this. Oh my God. Now normally wrapping paper is, got patterns and whatnot on it. And there are ways to do that, but just again for the sake of time, and I haven't prepared a setup for that. There are selections in here I can show you. Shift A under texture, you have noise textures, which has a bunch of different options. Wave texture, Veroni, all these different texture options which you can plug into your diffuse, and with a few other node tweaks you can have some colored material with a pattern that you can adjust. But again, for time's sake, I'm going to keep this simple diffuse material. I'm going to give it let's do some red wrapping paper. And you can see you have a little bit of reflection down here on the side of the other objects. That's pretty shiny paper, but let's color the other ones and see what it looks like. And I will just name this present red. I'm not going to worry about that capital E there. So let's select this other present down here and pick the present, separate the material into its own. I'm going to do a yellow color for this one. It might almost be too shiny. Let me turn that down a little bit. Yeah, there we go. So about down to a 0.3. I'm going to select this red cube again here and crank that down a little bit to 0.3 as well. You can either click on it and type it in or use the slider. Just select that little package there. Go down to present. Either red or yellow, doesn't matter, and then click the index there to separate it out to its own. And I'm going to create blue for this one. I'm really not going too creative with the colors here, am I? Maybe we'll do a purple one. We'll just go nuts. There's a blue package. Let's do a purple one for this then. Separate that. Yeah, give me a purple one. And rename your material. So as you can see, you can, if you just have material 1, 2, 3, 4, you won't know what they're applied to unless you check, and unless you just go ahead and name it as close as possible to the object that you have as well. Because we can even name the objects. You can select any object and go into its object properties and name it, and it will reflect up here as well. So if we just do purple present. You can see it, of course, alphabetized, but it has changed the name up in the outliner as well. So just go ahead and select your, I'm going to go back to the Material tab, select your presents and apply materials to them just as we did with the others. I don't know if I want to do a green one. Maybe we can do a light green. That doesn't look good. And you can just play around with the material settings and make your scene the way you want, and you can practice all of the functions you learned by moving, scaling, rotating, beveling, and duplicating, and get the scene to look exactly like you want. And we can go into rendering it here. I'm gonna stop talking for a second so I'm not confusing myself while I'm trying to finish this last package. There we go. Okay, so this is what I'm going to go ahead and render in the next video, and you go ahead and practice everything else and get everything looking the way you want, and then we can render out a final image of your scene.